Mission Intern, or GMI for short, for Global Ministries. For those who are unfamiliar, Global Ministries is a joint witness and mission between the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, and the United Church of Christ, with a mission to receive and share the good news of Jesus Christ by joining with global and local partners to work for justice, reconciliation, and peace. As a Global Mission Intern, I worked in partnership with the Presbyterian Church in the Republic of Korea, South Korea, for 2 years. This is Mike. Through the PROK, my time was split between 3 placements: the General Assembly Office of PROK, the General Assembly Office of the National Church Women's Association of PROK, and Tudebang, also known as my sister's place. Within the General Assembly offices of PROK and the PROK Women's Association, I worked alongside the staff to provide administrative support, assist in translating documents and newsletters, participate in gatherings and events, and learn how PROK functions on the general church level. On the other hand, my role with Tudebang was to work alongside the staff to support Korean and migrant women who had been forced and or deceived into working in camp towns and red light districts near U.S. military bases in South Korea. The question I get asked the most as a GMI is, why Korea? And each time I get asked this question, I laugh a bit because it's a bit of a funny thing. When I first began preparing to apply to be a GMI, I never considered a placement in Korea. For me, Korea was always like that one relative you've only seen about 3 times in your life and know that you're related, but is really more like a stranger. And while Korea was unfamiliar to me in many ways, it was still familiar enough for me to hope that my placement would be elsewhere, somewhere totally different and new. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, Korea became the best option and one of the safest options for my placement. I arrived in Korea in March 2021 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic with both excitement and worries. As a Korean American, much of my identity has been shaped by being born and raised in the United States. I knew that living in Korea with my Korean American identity, but with the outward characteristics of a Korean person, could present some challenges. And I was challenged to live and learn in a country that, while I do have familial and ethnic ties to, much of the deep heritage, culture, and language was lost to me. In the beginning, I often found myself struggling to find my place in settings where I was Korean enough for basic conversation and understanding, but not enough for the subtle nuances within the language and culture. However, while struggling with the divides in my identity between 2 cultures and my broken Korean, I found surprising comfort in being surrounded by people who looked like me, where I had this new ability just to blend in and not stand out. One of the biggest challenges and blessings as a GMI was my work with Tudebang. As a special mission program of the PRK Women's Association, Tudebang is an organization that works to support victims and survivors of prostitution, sexual exploitation, and sex trafficking within U.S. military camp towns in South Korea. Established in 1986, Tudebang first began working with young Korean women who had been forced or deceived into working in the camp town sex industry. As these camp towns thrived with restaurants, shops, bars, and clubs operating for military soldiers, many working in the camp towns regularly faced violence and exploitation. As the foreign currency earned by camp town women began to make up the basis for the country's economic growth, the Korean government worked to systematically manage the women. Campaigns were enforced to clean up the camp towns, which required the women to undergo regular health inspections and cruel treatment plans to ensure the safe enjoyment of U.S. soldiers. In the mid-1900s, the demographic of women working near U.S. military bases began to shift from Korean women to migrant women. Today, Tudebang works to support the aging and elderly Korean women who were in the camp town sex industries in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and migrant women who are currently in or have left the camp town nightclubs in recent years. My role with Tudebang was to work with the staff to support clients, including helping with Korean English translations between staff and migrant women clients, participating in outreach programs, and joining in the community lunches, therapy programs, workshops, and field trips organized for clients. My work with Turebang challenged me to not only come to terms with the painful reality of exploitation that many women face today, but also the systems and bodies that are responsible, whether intentionally or not, for continuing and supporting a cycle of oppression. In the beginning, I struggled with the discomfort of knowing that the two parts that make up my identity as a Korean American both had a hand in forming and managing camp towns, and in some ways have benefited from them. This realization was an uncomfortable truth that I had difficult processing. I wasn't sure how to get rid of this feeling of discomfort and struggled to process emotions of frustration, anger, and confusion. It was from other ecumenical mission coworkers working in Korea with me that I learned I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because in the work for peace and justice, that feeling really never goes away. I had to learn that sometimes there will be hard truth that may call into question my indirect complicity, and where my first reaction may be to emotionally dissociate and deny the possibility that I could be wrong. However, it is in this type of situation where we must be even more intentional to acknowledge and accept the uncomfortableness and step out of our comfort zones to continue to remain present. Isaiah 42:16 reads, "I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. I will not forsake them." This scripture reminds us that there will be unfamiliar and uncomfortable moments while living as people of faith. We will be challenged in moments of uncertainty, unsure of where a particular path may lead us. Reflecting on the past 2 years in Korea, this scripture holds special meaning to me. I began my time with many worries and uncertainties, and now I'm acutely aware of how much I have grown and changed. I feel more stable. I feel as if I have a better understanding of myself, who I am and what I want my life to be, my identity, who I am as a Korean American, and my faith and my relationship with God. While there were many moments where I felt uncertain and uncomfortable, I felt even more moments of support and guidance. When I first began my placement at Turebang's main office, I was referred to simply as an American person by an elderly Korean woman client who often was in the office helping to clean and take care of the office space. For her, not only was I a random stranger who showed up one day and began working with the staff, but I was also very young and inexperienced with life. In addition to my own challenges with the language barrier, there was little interest in getting to know me and remembering my name. However, as I slowly became a familiar face within the office, she began to call me by my name, often even correcting other clients who did not know or remember my name. We often spent time together, sharing coffee and snacks, huddling over the gas heater in the winter, tending to the community garden, or watching the street cats outside. She would tell me about her experiences growing up, teach me when and how to harvest acorns and chestnuts, explain how to make certain Korean recipes, or how to read the lunar calendar, making sure to teach me which days were considered auspicious. There are times when she would ask the other staff where I was, if I was running late, or worry about if I was eating well at home, while living alone so far away from my parents in a different country. One day, she handed me a plastic bag of toturimuk, Korean acorn jelly, that she had made with the acorns she had collected and harvested herself. She told me to take it home and eat it as a side dish, because I needed to make sure to eat well as a person living alone in another country without my parents. While I had begun my term with a mix of excitement, worry, and uncertainty about what my time as a GMI would hold, receiving the tuturimuk represented to me all the love, care, and acceptance I felt during my time in Korea. It also showed me that in a community such as Turebang, filled with care and safety for those who are marginalized, such hope, support, and acceptance can be found. Turebang's work has shaped my view on how we, as people of faith, must act with acceptance and kindness. That despite all our differences and the cruelty and hardships in the world, we must be the ones who actively care and learn, the ones who take action and help, and who will be there to support and stand with those marginalized in society. Thank you.